Hey everybody, it's Charlie from DM Moto, and if you talk to somebody who rides motorcycles, they'll often have an array of reasons of why they ride. It's very different from the automotive world, where most people drive cars because they need to get places. However, for motorcycles, especially these days here in North America, most people ride for some degree of pleasure. Now, for some people, that's a pleasure of adrenaline and of thrill and of going quickly. For some people, that's a pleasure of exploring places that they couldn't normally get to on something that isn't motorized or something that isn't made thin and skinny with two wheels. For some people, it's about going out with friends and having a social aspect. But for some people, it's about looking cool while sort of combining that freedom and unique experience that you can't really get on most newer motorized machines. I mean, you hop on any sort of e-bike or vehicle, outside of something like a Morgan, and you're not getting a raw, kind of pure, simple, and beautiful mechanical experience like you get with this Kawasaki W800. This is not the motorcycle you go out and buy if you're simply looking to go fast on a budget. It's not the motorcycle you go out to buy if you're looking to go and do big miles and long road trips. It's certainly not a bike you buy to go off-road, and it's not a bike that you would probably go out and buy if you're regularly commuting. However, if you just like the pure and simple joy of going out and riding a more raw experience bike, but you don't want to deal with carburetors, and you don't want to deal with some old motorcycle that's 30 years old, has to be cleaned up and restored, and you don't want to deal with old brakes and lack of ABS. You still want the modern amenities of modern motorcycling technology, but you want it to look and feel like a classic bike. This is a pretty darn cool option. The motor is a parallel twin 360-degree crank, air-cooled 800-ish cc motor, making just over 50 horsepower, just under that in pound-feet of torque. You will have already seen it here in front of you. It's mounted on a pretty simple and straightforward metal frame with tires that are wrapped around spoked wheels with disc brakes featuring ABS and a bodywork that looks great and feels great. All very high quality metals and materials. You still have LED lights, but they still look classic. You've got analog gauges. I love seeing that. It's very straightforward and simple switchgear right here, but you still do have adjustable brake and clutch levers. So it's this really nice blend of hearkening to the heritage W bikes of early Kawasaki's, but also bringing in those modern amenities and features that make riding that much easier. This is a fantastic motorcycle for someone who might ride a few times a week or maybe a few times a month, and they want to know that every time they go and get on their bike in their garage, as long as it's got fuel in it, they're going to be able to start it right up and hit the road, whether that's for a 20-minute ride around the neighborhood or a few-hour ride around town. Now, I'm not going to claim that it's particularly affordable. This thing is going to be over $11,000 once you tack on the destination fee, and that's before you pay tax, title, and fees at a dealership. That being said, you might be able to finagle your way into one for a little bit less, depending on how long it's been sitting on the dealer floor, but I don't think this is exactly a super high volume bike for Kawasaki, so I don't know how many of those are just going to be sitting around at dealerships. Now, we also reviewed the Kawasaki W230, which costs about half as much of this, has maybe a fifth of as much power, single cylinder, 230cc engine, and that bike was a lot of fun while still looking just as cool. The average person on the street's not really going to know that you're dealing with a much smaller and simpler bike with that W230, and it could still barely do highway speeds. So I was really happy with that package. This one is definitely a different vibe, and it's definitely a much higher expense. So if you plan on riding more regularly and you need to be able to do highway or maybe put a passenger on back regularly, I could see the point of getting the W800, but a lot of the joy that I got on the W230 is shared here in the W800. So very much recommend that motorcycle as well for about half the cost. So let's get on the bike here, fire it up, plug in my Helite vest. I had to wear my Helite leather jacket here for this bike. It just looked so proper with the styling. But I do have some new gear for our gear check. We've got the Revit boundless boot that I'm wearing. I also got the Ortez jeans. I've got some more Revit gear coming here soon. I'm gonna have some sand gloves, I believe, as well as a jacket, a little bit more of an ADV jacket. Check the link below if you want to see those Revit products. I'm also wearing my Arai Contour X helmet, so that despite being kind of cool looking around all this, the jeans and the boots and the dark leather jacket, still have a nice high-vis Arai helmet protecting my noggin. I love an air-cooled engine. And they got this cool dual exhaust. Woo! That pea shooter, giving it a really fun, throaty sound. The engine's got a nice thump to it. It's by no means an exotic sound, being just a simple parallel twin design. But they did a good job with the factory exhaust. I'm sure there are some aftermarket exhausts that can really wake this up too. That typically is the case here in the motorcycle world, but it's a nice volume level for a stock bike. We are up in beautiful Lake Forest, California right now. Kind of a stomping grounds for our bike reviews. This is certainly a motorcycle that would have justified a trip to the coast as well. But it's kind of happy wherever you need to ride. Despite being a little bit of a simpler suspension, generally, I'm going to go as far as to say simpler componentry in general from a performance and mechanical standpoint. I mean, this is not one of Kawasaki's fast boy bikes. In fact, I'm switching this out for a Kawasaki Z500 here in about an hour. And that bike's going to cost half as much, go twice as fast, and probably be more fun from, again, sort of a thrill-seeking and adrenaline junkie kind of riding perspective. But what I've liked about having the W800 around is I'm not motivated to twist this thing as fast as it can go at all times and to rip it up to redline away from every light and to be scrape and peg. I just like being out and riding. I like being exposed to the elements here. I like looking down and seeing the analog tachometer sweep up, and then I shift, and then it sweeps. It just keeps going. I like seeing my speed just displayed to me on this simple analog gauge as well. I like the small size of the bike. When I came off the W230 and I was looking at the W800 on Kawasaki's website, I thought it was going to be a bigger motorcycle. I thought it was going to be more like Honda Rebel 1100, like big cruiser type or something, but no, this is still a small feeling bike. I'm very much perched on it with a single piece seat. I have a bit of a commanding position. Now that being said, my only complaints from the ergo standpoint are that my knees right here are really rubbing up against the tank, and it wasn't too much of an issue until I got these Ortez jeans on from Revit, and they've got knee pads in them. It's a light level of knee armor in there, but the armor is rubbing up against the tank here, especially these tank pads that Kawasaki's included on the bike, and it's a bit uncomfortable, I gotta say. On top of that, the pegs, there's not a ton of room for them, either up or down, so my knees have a decent bit of bend in there. And you also start scraping peg before too long. So it's not necessarily the most ergonomically friendly motorcycle for riders of maybe more extreme heights. I am 5'10", 170 pounds, 32-inch inseam. So generally most motorcycles fit me well. And this one I'm okay. It's kind of a fun position, but I wouldn't say it's ergonomically perfect. Great little responsive engine though. You hear some of those rev match downshifts. It's very spunky. The way that this air-cooled inline 2 makes power and just provides it all around the rev range I'm actually never even really looking at what my revs are. I'm just hearing and responding to the engine. Sometimes I short shift, sometimes I rev it out. It's a really nice blend between smooth and refined and also having some character. If you watch my channel regularly, many of my older reviews, you'll know that sometimes I get on bikes and I lament the lack of character. Because ultimately, if I'm putting myself on two wheels, I want to have some fun. I want to have some liveliness to the engine underneath me, or else I might as well be riding something electric. And that's a bit how I felt when I was out here on the Honda NT1100. Yes, you can go on that bike and do tens of thousands of miles and it's going to be reliable and simple and easy and straightforward. But I'm probably going to get in a car if I'm just going to put a ton of miles on something like that. Or again, you could still get touring motorcycles that have characteristic engines. So I really like that Kawasaki has managed to make this powertrain modern enough to fit all the EPA and Euro 5 regulations. I assume it's Euro 5 compliant. And then also have enough power to be usable in all sorts of riding situations. And then also have some character and be fun. I haven't mentioned it yet, but this engine's only paired up to a 5-speed transmission. However, fine with me. It really has been. There's enough torque and power around the rev range, and it's not like I'm ringing this out up into triple digits, so totally been fine with the 5-speed. Just kind of makes it so I don't have to shift as often. What in the world is this truck doing going up this hill? I think he's wondering the same thing. That's funny. But when I'm on the W800, I kind of don't care as much when I get caught behind traffic, because I get to look around the bike, look around my riding environment, just be happy that I'm out here. Dirt right there that we got a little squirrely on the NT1100. Take it a little easier this time. Again, anti-lock brakes, something that more traditional riders might be like, you don't need those, but did you see how fast right there I stopped? That is why I like ABS, because oftentimes your emergency braking is not in a situation where you've got the brake covered and you can threshold and bring the bike to a very expedient and controlled stop. Typically emergency stops are, I come around this corner and all of a sudden there's a car in the way, slam on the brakes, grab them. That's where ABS is going to help keep me without dumping this bike over quite as dramatically and quite as often. So I'm glad that Kawasaki just gives it to us with ABS. And the cool thing with ABS is you don't have to use it, buddy. You can still threshold brake and kind of feel right where that edge of grip would be coming, and then progressively brake down and still stop just about as quickly with ABS as you could without. Cruising here at 55. Really low revs, just over 3,000 RPM. Quiets right down. There is a degree of vibration across the rev range with this motorcycle, but I almost kind of like that. I kind of like, again, the bike speaking to me a little bit, having a little bit of that character. This isn't a motorcycle that I ride to be refined for long distance rides and to mute all the vibrations possible. I like feeling that there is an air-cooled engine under me. It's what I paid for. Here's the thing with bikes like this. I've gone down this road faster, and I could probably go down it faster with this bike. But what I like about bikes with a little bit of different character like this is the reward is not to see how quickly I can go down this road. The reward is just going down this road. It's being out here. It's being on a machine rather than a utility. I don't care that I don't have the sharpest brakes, or the grippiest tires, or the lightest chassis, or the most power. I'm having fun. One of my few complaints with the W800, something I was a little bit more okay with passing on the $5,000 to $6,000 W230, but just as I called BMW out on their the R18, I'm calling Kawasaki out on this one. No fuel gauge. Now, I've been riding power sport vehicles for decades, and even when there's not a powered fuel gauge on some of my older stuff, there's at least some sort of a visual aid on the outside to show you where the fuel level's at in the tube, or a gas cap that has a physical kind of buoy on it to sort of see how much fuel's in there. But to pay $11,000 and not be able to at least just see how much fuel is in your bike before you head out on a ride, that's disappointing to me. It really is. Even if it were just something simple where it baked right into here on the screen, I had to click through the buttons and just see, oh, I've got a half tank, cool, I know I'm good for this ride, or oh, I need to swing into the gas station. Now, I don't need you coming into the comments to tell me, oh, you can just reset your trip meter, or you don't need a fuel gauge on there, what are you talking about? We already published our daily rider fuel economy test on this bike, and there already were comments, all angry, all caps. Well, what do you need a fuel gauge for? I need a fuel gauge because I just dropped $11,000 on a motorcycle that doesn't even have liquid cooling. You understand how much money that is? And Kawasaki can't give me a fuel gauge? Why do I need a fuel gauge? Because it's inconvenient, and because it's a simple, straightforward aspect of a modern mechanical bike. How do you have anti-lock brakes but no fuel gauge? You see where the difference is there? If I were buying a 1980s Honda and it didn't have a fuel gauge, I paid $1,500. Yeah, I'm not going to complain about that. But if I go into a dealership and I could choose between all of these different motorcycles, and I choose this W800 and it doesn't have a fuel gauge, I'm going to be disappointed. Let's get the W800 up to highway speeds here. If you want to do some commuting with it, or you just need to get somewhere on the highway, it's really not too bad of a bike for it. Obviously no wind protection, but sometimes I kind of appreciate that because it makes it quieter when you have nice clean air on you. Up into 5th gear, 70 miles per hour. Still pretty low revs, just about 4 grand. Cruising along. Getting hit with wind everywhere, my whole chest, upper part. Fortunately, this Contour X from Arai is decently quiet in the wind, but yeah, I wouldn't want to be out here in 30-degree temps, and I wouldn't want to be out here for 2 hours, but perfectly fine on the highway. And even here in top gear, going uphill, I can accelerate without downshifting. Now, one thing that is a bit strange with the W800, and I don't think we're going to see it here on this section of highway, but because of the way that the tires are designed with sort of these straight lines in them, if you get on grooved concrete highway or roads of any sort, the bike has this tendency to wander and track in a strange way. So some areas don't have that. It's a total non-issue, but we do have a decent bit of that here in Southern California. So we noticed it a lot on our daily commuter test. So something to be aware of. Not a deal breaker, but if you do have a lot of that sort of highway, it's going to throw you off. Just for kicks and giggles, let's see what we can get up to here. Yeah, plenty of power there, plenty of speed, no problem getting up to triple digits if you ride in Mexico. As I said, we've already published one video on this bike, so I kind of know what the general sentiment is on this motorcycle. Seems to be received pretty positively, and I'm a bit surprised by that. Not because it's not a good bike, I think it's very warranted, but again, just because of the price. Typically with YouTube commenters, we've got most people coming in being negative, and I was expecting more comments of, oh, I can't imagine spending $11,000 on that motorcycle and it only makes 50-something horsepower, and you can get a blah 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 blah, name your sort of bike for so much less. because they're not wrong in that. This is expensive for what you're getting from a performance standpoint. But the beauty of the motorcycle world, and really consumerism in general, you don't have to buy it. But I'm glad Kawasaki makes it. I really am. It adds to the flavor and the beauty of the motorcycle world. And whether it's something like the Can-Am Origin electric adventure bike that I said a similar thing on, I'm glad it exists. I'm also glad that this W800 exists. Now, to me, very personally, I'm not a big style guy. I buy my clothes at Costco. I wear them until they have holes in them. While I appreciate how this looks, to me, it's not worth spending the money on. I would get something like the C500 we're going to pick up just because I want the value aspect. But there are absolutely those type of people who like to look good and like to feel good, and that's what this bike does. Now, I haven't ridden the Triumph Bonneville. I haven't ridden, what's the other big competitor? Were there any of the Royal Enfields or anything like that? So I don't have a direct comparison for this one on kind of what it's going to be like compared to its competitors. All I can tell you is I can see it. I can absolutely see the appeal. Oh, you do have a center stand as well. I forgot to mention that. Easier for maintenance and storage, perhaps. So there it is, Kawasaki's W800. A worthy upgrade to the W230, and both bikes, and I think, are pretty darn neat. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on this W800, check the link below. We've got our daily rider fuel economy test, as well as a no talking winding road review. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from DM Moto, and as always, ride on.